with a focus on how we can use medical research studies and maybe a part-time job and things like that. But just a reminder, the best part about our discussions is they're live and interactive. So if you have questions, comments, thoughts, things that you'd like to share on this topic, just jump in, use chat, use Q&A, and we'd love to have your feedback. Well, welcome to our panel members. And before we dive into the discussion, let's get to know the three of you a little bit better. I'm going to start with Ben because Ben represents a company that is a positive aging community champion, Seniors Helping Seniors. And a few months ago, Ben suggested this topic and he found some panel members, and we had a great discussion a few months ago, thanks to Ben on Purposeful Living, and I know we're going to have one today. So first off, Ben, thanks for the idea and the support. But second, tell us a little bit about yourself, and let's get to know you, and then we'll meet our other panel members.
Thanks, Steve. I'm very excited for this event as well. Let me tell you, a little bit about our organization. So my name is Ben Chernow, and I'm with Seniors Helping Seniors. We are a premium home care agency that emphasizes companionship and social engagement. And we do that by hiring caregivers who are mature and sophisticated. So mature caregivers, they tend to have more in common with clients. That allows them to better relate with clients and in turn kind of build relationships. They're also pretty sophisticated. They're able to handle complex life administration tasks beyond the scope of traditional home care. Some examples are, like obtaining parking permits, navigating airports. We are big fans of these purposeful living events because there's a lot of mission alignment between these events and our organization. So most of our caregivers are retired professionals who do this because they find it to be rewarding and fulfilling. And one of our caregivers is actually participating in this panel today, Anna, and I'm going to embarrass her a little bit really quickly. Sorry, Anna. So Anna works primarily with a woman who has dementia. And Anna took it upon herself recently to, in her free time, dig up an old newspaper article written about the client and an award she had won for outstanding achievement in her career. And Anna printed out the article, brought it with her to the shift, read it to the client, and from what I can tell, had like a really special, meaningful moment. And yes, Anna is amazing and special, but that type of thing is not uncommon for us. Our caregivers really do enjoy building relationships with clients and do kind of go above and beyond to make clients feel special. Our hope with these purposeful living events is always that people are going to think that this is also something that they might find fulfilling and rewarding and interested in getting involved. I hope we do hear from some of you, and I'm very much looking forward to this event, learning more about kind of clinical research and how that can also help facilitate purposeful living.
I love it, man. Well, thanks, Ben. And all right, I'm excited. We'll dive in deeper to that, but let me start with we had a little preview on Anna, but let's meet Sierra. And Sierra, you're with the National Institutes on Aging, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Sierra Kunkoski. I'm the clinical research recruiter for the National Institute on Aging. Our clinical unit is held in Baltimore. A lot of people are familiar with our Bethesda campus, which is the head of NIH. And while we do have tons of researchers for NIA over at the Bethesda campus, we do our clinical research studies in Baltimore. So if no one is familiar with NIA, NIA is one of the 27 institutes and centers of the NIH, and we're actually celebrating 50 years right now. So that's very exciting. The NIA is primarily a federal agent, and it supports conducting Alzheimer's disease and aging studies. So we're the leading researchers in Alzheimer's disease and dementia research, but we have tons of other studies going on as well at this time. And I'm happy to explain those to potential participants and kind of find something that potentially could work for everyone.
I love it. And I'm really glad that you're on here for many reasons, but what I'm hoping, and I'm just sort of planting the seed after we get to know Anna, I'd love for you to sort of share with us the mystery behind these clinical research studies. I hear a lot about them, but it's sort of understanding, where this data goes and how it kind of makes our lives and the lives of others better would be very interesting. But Anna, we got a little preview that one of the things that you do is help others through seniors helping seniors. But then also, I believe you have participated in studies. But give us a little bit about your background. What led to this interesting, unique path with a lot of variety in it?
Well, it's I don't know how interesting it is because I was working in an administrative capacity for a law firm in Rockville, just a very, very busy office, 10, 11 hours a day, no lunch break. And when that started to get old, I quit and wanted to find something completely and entirely different. And I came upon Ben's ad recruiting companionship providers for seniors, and I signed on with Seniors Helping Seniors. And Ben mentioned one of the clients who was my first client, and she has dementia and she lives in a local retirement home about 10 minutes away from me. And what I quickly realized that even though she's surrounded by tens of people, she often feels very alone. And so that just the few hours that I spent with her a week, one-on-one, I'm completely focused on her, and they seem to bring her some joy and some comfort as she transitions into a very difficult period in her life. So it's been hugely rewarding. And Ben mentioned the article that I had read out to her, and I think I just saw sheer joy in her face for the first time because, she every so often she'll sob and tell me, I wish you had known me the way I was. And I got a chance through that article to kind of know her the way she was, and for her to also, it was a reminder to her of the person she had been.
Wow, man. Well, I mean, I think this is a wonderful story. Okay, and your motivation to make that connection is very admirable. But let me ask you something. Like, I mean, I can see how that helped her, and that relationship is helping her, and I'm sure her family is extremely grateful. But because today we're talking about purpose, and when you sort of compare your life in the busy law firm and working in administration to doing something like this, how does that make you feel personally?
I mean, a lot of it is kind of scary for me initially. I'm relatively new to this. I joined late last year, and so some of it is, it's just a foretaste of things to come, right? I mean, one of us, one of these days, all of us will be in this situation, and so it's also a reminder to me to try and do all those things, like staying involved with your community, having a large group of friends. It's an eye opener to me as much as we can to do those preventive things. And even if you do those, and if there's no family history of dementia, that might be your lot. But it's just been very educational for me to know what lies ahead, and what you can do to forestall it.
Yeah, none of us have a crystal ball, that's for sure. Out of curiosity, and I know I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but so often it's very difficult for us to even talk about this, like for us to talk about end of life, or someday, what if I get dementia? Talking about that with spouses, our children, the people around us. Do you find that, I mean, you're obviously on here on this webinar, talking about caring for somebody with dementia, but do you find that you're able to have a dialogue? It's easier for you to have a dialogue with others about sort of thinking and planning ahead for the future?
Oh yeah, I think definitely with friends and family, I bring it up quite a bit. Because again, till we're in that boat, we don't really um, envision ourselves there. But this is a constant reminder to me. I mean, I see other people in the retirement home who I'm sure in their prime were, pillars of the community, who were extraordinarily competent individuals, and here they are, in a very different set of circumstances. And um, it's really been eye-opening and um, you know saddening at times, but also exhilarating to see what's being done now that wasn't being done 20 years ago.
I love it. And I love the fact that all of these folks, your client, we all have a history, and celebrating that the way that you did with the woman with dementia, I think is wonderful. I'm going to come back to you because I heard that you've participated in some research studies as well. But let's go back to Sierra, and Sierra, um, let's sort of open up the curtains and sort of learn a little bit about, in general, research studies like the ones that are at NIA, and how do we get involved? Where does this data go? How does it help us and help the community at large?
Sure. So here at the NIA, and I will only speak for the NIA because that's where my expertise is. So I've been with NIA for over 10 years now. And I myself have participated in a ton of clinical research studies too. So I kind of can do both. So I can kind of explain from the participants aspect of it, but then also as somebody who's in, my job is to educate people on what a clinical trial is. And there is differences between them. Now for the NIA, we don't do any type of like investigational medications currently or anything like that. We have in the past, but currently right now, we're not doing anything like that. Really, our primary goal for most of our studies is to look at how we can help people age more basically gracefully. How can we help people? How can we understand what is causing the signs of disease and age in older life, and how we can help people stay in their homes or keep independency? Because we know that is extremely important for, overall. Not only are we looking at people's genetics and, medical history and lifestyle, but also a new part of it is looking at people's social history too, and their activity levels on a daily basis and what they're doing. Are they keeping themselves not only active in the community, but also, basic health things like food intakes and, mobility and that type of thing too.
Great. Now, at NIA, the so right now you're here, I'm going to pull up your website,
Sure.
because right now you have a variety of studies that people can participate with, and I'll drop this into chat if anybody's interested in and you can see right there the Sierra. You can contact her via email right off of this page. But tell us a little bit about the studies that you currently have going on, and then I'd love to be able to swing this back to how people can by participating in these studies, can find purpose and feel like they are making a difference and what have you.
Yeah, so we recruit ages 18 and over at the National Institute on Aging. A lot of times people think when they hear National Institute on Aging, they think it's supposed to be the older population, but that's not necessarily true. So every study that we have has a certain criteria that a person has to meet, whether it be age or medication usage might disqualify somebody, or maybe a certain health issue potentially could disqualify somebody. So every study has their own qualification, and that's my job, is to, one, educate the people on what study they potentially would qualify for, and then explain that study to them and make sure they understand, the commitment that is involved in the study. If they have any questions or concerns, I'm always here to answer those for them. Or maybe they just want to know what we have going on. So the National Institute on Aging actually runs the longest federal funded clinical research study, which is the Baltimore Longitudinal Study of Aging, as you see right there. So that one is a study where thousands of people have participated in over the years, where people come in for a 3-day visit, depending on their ages, how often they come in. So from age 20 to age 60, a participant would come in every 4 years. Once a participant reaches 60 to 80, comes in every 2 years. And then once a participant reaches age 80, they come in every year. And during a participant's 3-day visit with us, they get a huge battery of testing. So a participant would do things like a CAT scan, an MRI, basic blood work. They'll do an OGTT to see insulin levels, a DEXA scan to see their bone density. They'll do hearing tests, vision tests, smell tests, cognitive testing, so memory testing. So a bunch of different testing throughout their 3 days with us. And these testing gets repeated every single time they come in with us. And again, like I said, we have thousands of people that participate in this particular study, as well as people that come in not only from the Baltimore, DC area, but also all over the world, because it is such a well-known study. If ever anybody would like to know some findings about any clinical research study, maybe they have participated in the past or they're looking for something specific, you can always go to pubmed.gov and you can just type in the BLSA, and there's going to be tons of findings throughout the years that we have been doing the BLSA. It's been going on since 1958, and that's just when the federal government picked it up. So that's one huge study that we have going on.
I definitely learned something, because I always thought the Baltimore longitudinal study on aging was studying people that lived in Baltimore.
No. So for the most part, at one point in time, a lot of people lived in the Baltimore or DC area. But then, life happens and then people move, and that's okay. As long as they are willing to come back to us, we are absolutely willing to have them. Now, currently right now, our huge recruitment need for the BLSA is ages 20 to 55. And the reason being is, currently right now, which is awesome, our researchers have tons of data for the 55 plus ages. So currently right now, we want those 20 to 55-year-olds in hopes that we can watch them age in a longer span. My oldest participant is actually going to be 108 next month.
Wow.
So we see from ages 20 to 108, which is pretty awesome.
Now, because, we're talking about purpose, it's, if I go, well, and I'm 58, so I can't, I don't fall into your demographic window for recruiting, but if I or somebody, it was like, wow, this is fascinating, I want to be a part of this. My first question is, where does this data go and what is it used for?
Yeah, so people always ask, like, why join a clinical research trial or study? And there's two kind of demographics that I see a lot. One is somebody who's been affected by a disease or an illness, right? So whether it be a loved one or personal reasons. And then other reasons are, it is a lot of the studies, all of my studies, but the BLSA actually compensates for their time. So then it's also you get compensation for participating, as well as you're helping the scientific community learn a little bit more about something. So we learn about disease and conditions when people participate in clinical research trials. You also, a lot of participants say they feel like they're playing an active role in their health because they get such a huge medical workup, especially in a study like the BLSA, where they're basically looking at head to toe aging. You're helping researchers find new ways to prevent or treat diseases. And basically, a lot of the times too, that when you're participating in a clinical research trial, sometimes it doesn't benefit you directly, but it's going to help benefit generations to come. And without clinical research studies or trials, we wouldn't have the advances in the scientific community like we do today. So, all of the medications that we potentially take or a medical device that is on the market, that would not have happened without a participant participating in a clinical research trial or study.
And then all of these, you listed off a battery of testing that's done, bone density scans, this, that, and the other. These are all, as a participant, you would receive the results of that, correct?
Yeah, so there's a kind of a catch-22 with that answer. And a lot of the times when participating in a clinical research study for the NIA, not all institutes are this way, but for NIA, that most of the time when you are doing a study, a lot of the testing that we do is just for data purposes or points only. But with that being said, there is research testing that we do that has a data or a result attached to it, correct? So we would give that information over to the participant so they can use it for their own personal usage, whether it be taking it to their primary care doctor or just having it for their own purpose. Now, with that being said, I do see it, and unfortunately, it does happen where a participant comes in and maybe they feel like they're fine, or they've been with us for many years and haven't had any health issues, but then we do something, whether it be an MRI or they're on a stress test, and then sometimes that result can be different. Now, we're absolutely obligated to let that person know that there is some findings. We don't do any type of diagnostic testing, but we will say, hey, there's some findings and we need you to take this information over to a primary care doctor or a specialty doctor, whoever may need it. Unfortunately, the last couple of weeks on my clinical unit, we've had a couple of incidents where we have had to send participants directly to the ER. One of my great things that have happened is a couple of years ago, a gentleman came in. He's been participating with us for many years, and it was perfectly fine. He got on our stress test, and we had determined that there were some things going on, and within a couple of days, he had a pacemaker placed. And so those are the things that happen that maybe if he would have came in and participated with us, those results potentially could have been differently, but we caught it in time, and he's living a great active life and, hasn't had any problem since.
I love it. Now, let me jump back to Anna. Anna, as part of your sort of purpose, you participated in some clinical tests. Were they with NIA or were they with a different organization?
No, late last year, I got something in the mail from a DC-based group called Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. And they were soliciting diabetics to take part in a study. I don't remember the title. It was a very cumbersome title, but simply put, it required the participants to eat a low-fat vegan diet for 16 weeks.
And
so not NIA.
And so you signed up for that clinical trial.
Right. So I had to ask a slew of eligibility questions, and soon after that, I was at their DC office going through a battery of blood draws, during which I fainted. They did a body scan to determine the percentage of fat and muscle and bone in my body, and there were some other non-invasive scans. And then I also went to Yale University for magnetic resonance studies to measure the amount of fat in my liver and muscle.
Wow. Now, tell us, what are some of the good, bad, or otherwise what participating in this study and relating it back to living with purpose? How did that sort of tell me how that achieves some of your personal goals.
I think, I went into it purely for, selfish reasons. I just wanted to get a handle on my diabetes. And so I thought this would be a great opportunity to have um, people go into greater detail into the disease. And so I was just so impressed by the process and by the professionalism of this group of researchers. This particular group, their mission is to, and I'm quoting, save and improve human and animal lives through plant-based diets and ethical and effective scientific research. So their goal is basically prevention over pills. And as someone who takes, quite an array of pills every day, I was 100% on board with their mission.
Oh, yeah, I'm on their website right now, and it's the president is Dr. Neil Bernard. I know him, and he's very well known for his plant-based diet and nutritional approach to wellness. So that's pretty cool. Okay. All right. Well, I think we've kind of given a little bit. We know everybody on the screen now. We know the roles that we all play in living with purpose. And I just want to remind everybody that if you've got an insight or a challenge or anything related to this broad topic of living a purposeful life, feel free to jump in. Let's see, Mary is asking a question. This is probably more of Sierra. Is there any just virtual participation in any of your research projects?
So currently at the NIA, we don't have anything that is virtual, but I have to please, if you're ever interested in finding out a clinical research study that is out there, maybe you're not in the Baltimore area and the NIA is not, something that you can travel to, or if you want to look at for something virtual, because there are things that are out there, please go to clinicaltrials.gov. It is an amazing website that you can basically put in, maybe you are interested in diabetes studies, or maybe you're looking for something along for cancer or hormone replacement therapies, whatever it may be, but you're interested in participating in something like that. You can go on their website and they have a search bar on there that you can type in any topic. And it kind of gives you a really nice way to put in conditions or treatments or things like that. And then you can also go to location. So you can put in how far away that you're willing to travel. And it will give you details of all of the studies that are in your area or in an area that you're looking for, because maybe you're looking for something for a loved one that lives across the country, or even across the world, because there are studies on there that are across the world as well. And that can give you details of all of the studies that are in that area and kind of go through them and read them and see what is of interest to you. And then there's contact information and then details about the study as well. And so for me, I get this all the time where people see something and they just email me, and then that person, I will respond to that person and, follow up with them and give them the information on the study that they're seeking.
Wow. And while you were talking, as folks can see on the screen, I just went to the clinicaltrials.gov website and I typed in dementia and my location, which right now I'm in Northern Virginia, and it brought up a bunch of really interesting programs here. Now, I guess the thing would be is the question about virtual only research is, to your knowledge, does that exist, or do most
Yes.
research? Okay. All
Yes,
right.
that is. There is things out there, and it all depends on it. So it also too, you want to look at in your area is colleges or your local hospitals and universities. A lot of the times they have research units that are looking for participants as well. Also talk with your doctor, or primary care doctor or specialty doctor too, if you're interested in looking for something that is additional. They should have a lot of resources as well, or they have connections with people. I partner a lot with different types of physicians too, that can, promote our studies, or, it's just also, if you ever find a study that you're interested in, but you're questioning it, take that information over to your doctor and ask them about it. Ask your family members about it. Make sure that you're well educated in what you're committing to before committing.
Okay, great. Great resources there. And Zahida mentions, she said that Ginger Smith participates in clinical trials often. And for those of you who don't know who Ginger Smith is, we featured her here on our discussions, and I dropped a link in there so you could listen to her discussions. This woman was living in a nursing home for 2 years. She was diagnosed with dementia, Lewy body. She had hallucinations. She was placed on hospice. She was going to die. And they took her off all the medications that she was on. And all of a sudden, she started to recover. And now she's living independently in a condo in Southern California. It's mind-blowing. But I do remember from interviewing her that because she has these various conditions, that there's been a few clinical trials that she's participated in where it enabled her to try a different sort of approach to a condition, or I believe, you get some treatment that might cost money. This can be a cost savings thing as well.
Correct. Over in Bethesda, they see so many different rare diseases and disorders. And I always like to point out, if anyone is ever interested and they're looking for a good documentary and they're interested in clinical studies, is a number of years ago, NIH went on, they basically did a documentary, and it was called First in Human. And it was hosted by the Big Bang Theory's actor Jim Parsons, and it was on Discovery Health. And it's a multiple part series where they follow different people with different conditions over at our clinical center over in Bethesda. And it was really, really touching, and it really gave a huge look at what a clinical trial is and how it can benefit people. And unfortunately, there is pros and cons to it. Yep, that's it. It was it's on Discovery Health if you have it, which it might even be on YouTube. I have not looked at that for a while. But it's really a very interesting documentary. And it really gives a good insight in what a clinical trial is and what the clinical unit in Bethesda deals with on a daily basis.
Wow. Okay. Well, this is really great information. All right. I want to, Ben, I want to kind of jump back to you in terms of on the topic of affordability. Okay. And one of the things that I love about your organization is that it's providing jobs and incomes to older adults. Okay. And I know that sometimes, there's folks out there that it's just like, oh, I don't really need the money, but I want a job helping older adults. But one of the things that we talk a lot about here on our discussion platform is affordability. That for many of us, the idea of stopping working at age 65 and sort of living out the next 3 decades with a funded retirement is not achievable. Is that for many of us, the strategy to a healthy retirement, or I like to refer to it as graduation, may be working a series or 1 or 2 part-time jobs so that we're not drawing off our 401k or a pension or Social Security. Do you find that some of the folks that join your team are looking for income strategies?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for a lot of our people, that's a big part of it is kind of supplemental income to help, fund retirement. And Steve, I actually have some questions for the other panelists, if that's okay. So for Sierra, I am kind of wondering what the typical turnaround time is and kind of, I'm sure it varies, but normally how long after you participate can you kind of see study results? And then for Anna, I am very much wondering, I know she said she kind of got involved, as she said, to try to get a handle on her diabetes, but I'm wondering kind of if you found like fulfillment in the knowledge that you have like contributed to medical science.
Whoops. Oh, you're on. Yep.
A turnaround time for a study varies, and here's where our problem lies a lot of time in clinical research studies, is that about 80 to 90% of clinical research studies do not get completed in a timely manner because of lack of participation. So without participants, we don't have a study and it can't be fulfilled. So every study varies. It could be very small studies, and we had that. I have one going on right now that's only about 60 participants, and that one's flying by. And so we should see a turnaround time for that one probably within the next year or so. But then these longitudinal studies where they're ongoing and have been ongoing for many years, it really all depends on what they're looking at. Not only do we need participants to participate in these, we also need researchers that are willing to look at the data. And that's also been a little bit challenging too throughout the years, is to find researchers that are willing to sit down and analyze the data. Here on our clinical unit, we can get it all done. It's just that other aspect of it is going through the data and making sure that the data is correct. And a lot of the times too, it takes many, many, many years for a publication to be published. So that also can be a little bit iffy. Now, with a lot of our smaller studies, when you sign up and you're wanting to participate, we also have you signed a form that basically says that once there is findings, if you want to be in contact and want to read about what you have contributed to, then we will send that to you, so you know what what you have done throughout the years. But a lot of the times it does take a little while, at least a few years, to kind of get to that point. And sometimes unfortunately, there's the pro to it, or the con to it is that unfortunately sometimes what they thought was they're going to look at doesn't quite turn out after the data is analyzed too.
Great. Anna, is that in alignment with some of your thoughts on participating in a study?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned earlier when we were talking that I live across the street from NIH, and this is the first time I'm really participating. This is not an NIH study that I participated in, but, I should have been much more involved. And I think also if you participate, it kind of opens your eyes to how detailed and meticulous these researchers are in their process of inquiry, and every I is dotted, every T is crossed. And so that was an eye-opening experience for me. So yeah, although they were the ones who kept reminding us that it was for the greater good, I think we were all so focused on our own complications. But yeah, I mean, it takes thousands and thousands of volunteers to advance the science.
I love it. Now, Anna, so you had mentioned, you sort of transitioned to a new chapter in life from the busy law firm, and we know that you're doing, you're helping with seniors helping seniors, and you participated in this research project. Are there other things that you're doing to live a purposeful life? What does that look like?
I used to be a Montgomery County foster parent, and so I have actually just started making inquiries to see if I'm too old to be a foster parent again. I'm 63, so I don't know if there's a cutoff. but I was a Montgomery County foster parent providing respite care for about 10 years. I would love to talk about, um, work that do fulfillment, to see children transition from getting D's in math to getting A's and B's over the time that you have them is like no other feeling that I've had.
Wow.
So I'm in quite, and I've in touch with my social worker to see if I'm eligible at 63. I think maybe not.
Well,
And then, I have to get
if
my husband on.
if you're not eligible, then there's a problem in the world. Actually, number one, thank you for your service. I mean, this is I recognize that there's not a long line of people signing up to be foster parents. But I love telling the
Right.
story. I'll have to look it up, but there was a naval base, I believe it was in Ohio, that was closing down, and it was transitioned into affordable housing for families that were taking care of foster children, and for older adults. And the older adults that would qualify to live in this community, the one requirement is, look, you qualify for this affordable housing, but you have to help these families raise these foster children. And I was like, man, what a great concept that needs to be replicated.
Right.
Uh,
I mean, for me, again, I kind of got into it because I wanted to just show my boys what children who live, 2 miles away from them, what their lives are like. So I think for them, they were pretty blown away. They were young. I mean, they were in their teens. And I did only respite care, which means I didn't do long term. I had the most I had two sisters for 2 months. So they just were with me for during a very transitional period of time while a more permanent situation was being found for them. So, but again, the difference that you can make in that short span, it's just, I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting that kind of change, just to provide, normalcy and routine. And I think those were the best 10 years.
Wow. Thank you. Now, Zahida has an interesting question for Anna, but it's a great question. She says Anna's doing the seniors helping seniors. Is she also providing them with any legal advice due to being a lawyer? And Anna, you're not a lawyer,
I'm not a
you work in
lawyer.
a law firm, but Zahida, this is an interesting twist. Your question that I wanted to bring up is, Ben, you actually are a lawyer, correct? And
Yes, I am a lawyer. And the quick answer to that question is no. We are not giving anybody legal advice on anything.
but Ben, just your path of finding purpose is, and I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, but did you go sort of the traditional graduate from law school, work in a law firm, and then you change direction and open seniors helping seniors?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. So after law school, I did kind of go traditional route. So I started at a kind of big law firm in New York City and transitioned to kind of a smaller, more boutique firm in our area. I did commercial litigation, and yeah, I really just did not find it fulfilling. So commercial litigation basically means helping companies sue each other, and it is even worse than it sounds. I really did not enjoy it. And very much, yeah, wanted to find something that I thought was more meaningful and kind of more impactful. And yeah, have found this to be a much more fulfilling career choice.
I love it. Now, Mary has a question for Sierra. She says, Sierra, is there any way to suggest research, for example, lymphedema or lipedema?
So Currently right now, NIA does not have anything going on for either of those, but I would absolutely, Mary, utilize that clinicaltrials.gov. And it can pull up all of the research studies in your area, or whoever may need those research studies in their area. It is a really great resource to anyone. And you kind of can go through and see what study you could potentially fit into. Also too, it does not hurt to email or to call a place that you see on clinicaltrials.gov just to ask the questions. And they should go over, a health evaluation screening as well as detailed information on what will be required of you as a study participant.
Yeah, and again, this search tool is very easy to use, Mary. As you see, I mean, I'm not sure where you're located, but I did this based on my location in Northern Virginia, and as you can see, there's quite a few studies within I believe, a 50-mile radius of where I'm located, and my gut level feeling too, Sierra, probably, if you just call one of them that the research studies with specific illnesses or diseases or focuses, you all probably collaborate with other research projects so that if somebody's not appropriate for your study, it's sort of like, oh, I heard about something, this other study that you might qualify for.
Correct. Now, everybody's different now because I've been doing this for so many years and I have partnered with so many, other institutes, but also other research areas, whether it be the universities. We partner a lot with Johns Hopkins. They have tons of research studies going on as well. That there is a lot of the times where somebody will call or email me and say, hey, do we as NIA have something of, of interest for whatever disease or, issue that is going on. And if it's a no, then I can give them more resources on what to look for in their area. Because a lot of times, like this morning, I got somebody who was from Brazil. So I can at least give them information on, where to look about in their area.
I love it. All right. Well, I'm glancing at the clock and I see that we're almost to the top of the hour. And I always like to, whenever we do a panel discussion, I like to make sure that my panel members know, hey, look, is there anything that you'd like to share that you didn't share? But I also like to let the audience know that, is there something that a rabbit hole that you'd like us to dive down deeper, or a challenge or concern that you're facing that you might want us to address? So first, I'll say to my panel members, anything that we haven't talked about yet that you might want to bring to the attention of our audience and the people listening to the recording?
I just wanted to say to the person who asked about online participation, that for the study that I did, yes, they did require you to go in for blood draws and the MRI thing at the beginning, at the end, and at the end of the study. But all the weeks in between, we were online. You met with the nutritionist once a week. You met with the team as a whole once a week. But so really, it was just the two bookends where we were required to go in person.
Now, Anna, please refresh my memory. Didn't they pay for your travel expenses to come up to them? So that's also something that I would like to tell people, that every study has their own budget or what they can do. So the National Institute on Aging, we do not compensate for travel, but most of all of our studies do compensate for their time. And every study has a different compensation amount. It could be as little as $40 all the way on up to a couple of $1,000, just again, depending on what that study is asking of a participant. But there is studies out there that are willing, like Anna's, to send people in, whether it be train, plane, whatever it may be. Again, depending on what that study's, budget looks like.
That's something that I don't think that we talked about, is that some of these studies do have compensation, and I imagine, like, if you're doing a drug trial study with a private organization that the budget might be.
They don't have budgets, unfortunately. A lot of the times,
Oh.
is their budgets are like extremely, extremely huge. Pharmaceutical worlds is a completely different aspect, and their budgets are fairly large compared to ours on the federal side. That is a lot smaller.
Yeah. So, great. All right. Well, this has been an amazing discussion, y'all. And Ben, I'm really excited about our next one because we're 2 for 2 here in terms of just a dialogue that just gets us all thinking about how can we, do things differently, and how can we make meaning in our lives at every chapter. And I tell you, Ben and Sierra and Anna, I mean, you sort of hit me from left field with the your foster parenting. I would love to hear. Well, regardless, I'd love to hear if they actually say that you're too old to be a foster parent. I really want to hear that, but I don't expect them to say that. And I would love to catch up with you if you end up getting in that program and being a foster parent at a different chapter in your life.
Right, right. I know I won't be taking on babies, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Or toddlers.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Thanks to everybody, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the next discussion. I'll get this recording along with links to all of our panel members up so that you can check that out at Positive Aging.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure.
Thanks. Okay.